Welcome back. Along with Mark Amadeo, I'm Tony Inseni. Ben Carroll on the big board, producing on the radio side, with Maggie Sutton on the television side as we come to you live from the Hy-Vee High School headquarters, where Hy-Vee proudly supports the student athletes, coaches, officials, and teachers of high school sports. Hy-Vee, making life easier, healthier, and happier. We come also live from the Des Moines Imports radio studios. Des Moines Imports with the largest selection of import brands under one roof, including Kia, Mitsubishi, Suzuki, and Saab, located off I-8035 on Highway 141 in Grimes, or 24/7 at DesMoinesImports.com. Again, Iowa Sports Connection, the address if you're looking for all the scores from last night. Also, we have updated the golf championship after the first round results, second round today at Finkbine Golf Course in Iowa City. That's Class 4A boys golf only. The rest of the field play in the spring, and girls and boys side. And he is the Hall of Famer himself from the Iowa High School Athletic Association and the information director, Bud Legg, joining us again this Saturday morning. Good morning, Bud. How are you?
Good morning, Tony and Mark. And Mark, I need to publicly apologize. I still don't think that I recognized your Hall of Fame honor from Dowling last week. And if I did, it was probably because I was sleepwalking.
Well, Bud,
but it was a great honor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you recognizing that. It was an honor. But I don't think he slided. I think maybe Tony might have slided me a few times.
Oh, are you kidding me?
But not you, Bud. Not
well, that goes without saying.
Thanks, Bud. Oh, usually he has my back, and today I'm stepped on.
That's right.
Well, Bud, what an exciting night of football last night. First of all, we talked about it last night. I know I talked to you about it earlier this week, but I don't know if there was more wins on one football field at one time by two coaches in that West Marshall of State Center against St. Edmund of Fort Dodge game last night.
What did we figure out? About 694 and maybe a tie or two thrown in there over the years. But I was over at that game, and West Marshall got off to a great start. They've got the total package. Their defense plays extremely well, and of course, Furch and company kind of keep everybody honest. They've got a nice little quarterback that runs the option, and a nice offensive line, and it was a great football game. St. Edmunds came back a little bit in the second half, had a 95 or 96-yard interception return, but it was just too much Trojans at State Center.
Well, that's tremendous, and I know, but we had several of those games like that. We call them surprises here. I don't know if they would be upsets, but one was Carroll, 6th ranked in our poll, losing to Crescent Orient Maxburg 23-14. And I don't know if that's a surprise or not, but as Tony mentioned earlier, Crescent's kind of been, or rather, they've been living on the edge a little bit up there in Carroll, and last night Crescent got them.
Well, this is a good time to pause and tip our hat to the Panthers down at Crescent, who have really come on this year under a new coach, and they've got the thing going right there, and what is it? If I look correctly, I think there's a three-way tie. If Harlan ends up beating Creston, then everybody will have beaten everybody else in that district, and then you start going to tiebreakers, and anytime you throw Harlan and Carroll into the mix, and you're tying with those type of people, then you know your program's arrived.
And you look at that district, and really you look at Class 3A period, Bud, and a lot of those same scenarios are going to play out with just teams beating each other. Very balanced in Class 3A. It's just a headache to figure out. Last night, Webster City and Clear Lake, I don't know if they figured things out. You can't on the scoreboard because one team won 28-27, that being the Lions of Clear Lake, but really a lot can be learned off of that football game.
Well, there's no question. Webster City coming back from a 28-6 halftime deficit, and got within 1 point with about 4 minutes to go, and then, as what Clear Lake so often has done in the past under Fred Week, they just simply took the ball and ran out the clock. But two excellent teams there, and you mentioned 3A at large. Tony, I may be wrong, but I think I only have 3 unbeaten teams in Class 3A at this point in the season, and usually we have a few more than that.
Yeah, Boyden, Hull, Rock Valley, Clear Lake, and ADM of Adel. And even ADM of Adel, as good of a season as they've had, they're kind of had the Carroll type of season. They've survived and advanced a few weeks and had some scares, but so far so good, a perfect season. And really, they've got the tough games out of their way.
Oh, there's no question about that. And ADM, I think, has got an exception. Could be one of the people in the mix in 3A as you march toward the Dome.
Well, the team that we were talking about earlier, Bud, was Linn-Mar of Marion. They're third ranked in Class 4 in the Iowa Sports Connection. They beat Cedar Rapids Washington 56-7 last night, but Cedar Rapids Washington the week before defeats City High of Iowa City. And boy, how often do you get teams that come off that surprising win that Cedar Rapids Washington did, and then all of a sudden kind of turn and lay an egg the following week, as it seemed like they did last night?
Well, to be fair to Cedar Rapids Washington, they lost to an awfully good ball club, and I really think the only reason Linn-Mar is rated third is that they've got Cedar Falls and Valley in front of them. But that's a good Linn-Mar team, exceptionally fine offensive team, and they're really inaugurating that new stadium in grand style this year.
Well, it's been a while. I mean, Melcher Dallas always had some pretty good football back down there in the 8-player game, and last night a big victory because Moravia came up last year and was just one of those surprise teams. I guess you got to put Melcher Dallas this year as that Cinderella story out of 8-player because they're unbeaten after the victory against Moravia, who came in unbeaten.
Well, no question about that, and that might be the ghost of Jerry Fazzetti lurking on the sidelines down in Melcher Dallas. He coached down there one time, or might have been from there for all I know. But Melcher Dallas, like you said, has had some good 8-player teams, but this was a real signature win during the regular season for them to beat Moravia.
Well, Bud, we've talked about some of the games that we've covered last night, and obviously some of the surprises, but something that maybe we have overlooked in the media that maybe you didn't, and let our listeners know statewide, something maybe some game that had a big importance.
Well, I think there's several, and to start rattling them off would probably do an injustice to a lot of others. But I think the big thing that we saw last week, and then again last night, is how important these final 2 weeks of the regular season are going to be. Nobody can take anything for granted, and teams better bring their A game, or they could be in trouble. I do want to kind of tip my hat to South Winneshiek, who a couple years ago was in 1A and played extremely well in 1A. I think they were runner-up a couple years ago. They moved to 2A. I'm not so sure that they won a game last year, and now they're setting unbeaten after 7 weeks. So South Win has really done a great job. And I think in that same tone of voice, PCM is kind of getting the old mystique about them that we don't rebuild, we reload, and they're having a great year and maybe much better than what I thought that they would have. And out in western Iowa, it's the same old. Logan, Magnolia, and St. Albert's. They're going to go right down to the wire in that district. There's so many of those in every class that 40 or 50 games that you can mark and say, holy cow, this is really going to be critical this week. And then the next week, you got another 40 or 50 that are a little different.
Bud, a few years back, we were all sitting there criticizing the expansion of the playoffs. Everybody had their opinion. That's kind of melted away, and I think this year, of all the years since the playoff expansion, is a real prime example because I don't care what class you're in, there are a number. Usually you could have 2, 3, maybe 4 teams that you knew were going to get to the Dome. Now, I don't know if you can figure it out. I think it's just as wide open a football season as I've ever seen from top to bottom, from 4A to 8-player.
Oh, it really is, Tony. And I when we made the move to expand to 16 teams in each class of the playoffs, I went back and looked at read microfilm on what happened when we moved from 4 to 8, and then 8 to 16, and now 16 to 32, and the same old theme comes up. You keep watering it down, and the simple fact of the matter is, you don't water it down. By opening it up, Iowa kids kind of start to rise to the top. They start to play better than they would have ordinarily, and now every week of the season becomes critical, not just to them, but to everybody.
And a tip of the hat to the coaches here in the state, because, Bud, sometimes we overlook that. We see the ones that get to the Unidome, but the coaching in the state has really been up and up over the last decades, and we've always had great coaches, but I think from top to bottom across the state now, we just got better. I mean, it used to be a handful, now it's a whole lot of great football coaches and their staffs across the state.
You can't say enough about our football coaches. I think of all of our coaches and in our coaching organizations and associations, they all do a brilliant job. But football coaches have always been about numbers. And when you're about numbers, you're about kids. And when you're about kids, then you're going to start getting better. And the one thing that the football coaches have done so very well is that they've networked with all the college coaches at all the levels, whether it's Division III, Division II, Division I, NAIA, junior college. All of our high school coaches know somebody in the next level up that can help them. And then there's a camaraderie among coaches in the different classes. They share information, they share knowledge, and I think you've seen that in the expansion of maybe some of the spread offenses that you see now, and certainly some of the defensive schemes. I mean, when you go to a high school game and you see a team running a 3-6-2 defense, then you know that somebody's been talking to somebody.
Yeah, no question about it. Again, we're visiting with Bud Legg, the Information Director with the Iowa High School Athletic Association here on the Iowa Sports Connection radio and television network. And Bud, I guess final question out of me is, this is the last year of the 2-year deal with the football, like the districts all being set up. When will the next 2 years, when will that be released for the football coaches so they can plan on their following season? I think some people have some curiosity about that.
Well, and the first thing that has to take place is the decision in 4A, and the survey that was taken among the 4A schools. The information of that, Mr. Tharp, our football coordinator in the office, will share that with the Board of Control this coming week. And I think it'll probably just be a discussion item, and then after that, probably some consultation and some fact-finding, and then a decision will be made as to what to do with 4A. And then when that happens, then we'll go back into pairing all those schools up, finding out what their enrollment is, and we usually know that by February, late February, and then Todd has the unenviable task of right during the state wrestling tournament before basketball, organizing all that. But he has done such a great job, and our entire staff kind of pitches in. Our new employee, Jared Chisik, is a real numbers cruncher, and gives him a lot of help and a lot of support. And so I would expect that within a month after the state basketball tournament is over, those districts will be out, maybe sooner. I'm not going to try to push anything, but they'll be out for the next 2 years once that enrollment takes place and we know where they are. The one problem you always have is the state of Iowa, when you work on classification, doesn't spread itself out geographically in equitable portions. Southwest Iowa is a great example. By the time you take Clarinda and Shenandoah, start naming another 2A school within 80 miles from them. There just aren't any.
Becomes a tough puzzle of matching pieces, and of course
Absolutely.
That means travel, means bus travel, and that means expenses to those schools in Southwest Iowa like that, and in different areas of the state. Well, Bud, it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes out. Interesting to see if Class 4A gets away from the conferences in football and goes to the district like the rest of the state classes do, but we'll find that out down the road. We appreciate you each and every time you come on and talk with us. We always find out some new things, some good things, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you, Bud.
Thank you, Tony. I had a little bit more sleep last night than I did last week, so I hope I was a little bit more coherent.
Sleep is overrated, Bud.
Yeah, just ask Tony.
Have a good weekend.
Well, from midnight to 3 for me this time.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you, Bud. Have a great weekend, my friend.
You bet, guys.